Hey guys, welcome back to this series of tutorials where we are building a food delivery app with React Native and Firebase. We're going to continue with our project, and before that, if it's your first time to watch this video, I would recommend you or suggest you to also watch the previous one so you can get to the same page with everyone else. And without any further ado, what we're going to build today is you should have the app like this, but so far we have not implemented the authentication. We have the UI, but if you just click on sign in, then you will be signed in the app, which is not the right way to do things. So what we're going to do is we're going to implement the authentication so you can authenticate users with email and password. We're also going to implement the Google authentication, and that will allow you to authenticate users with the Gmail account. If your user has got a Gmail account, they will be also able to sign in inside your application. So we will be implementing the email password, the Google email and password authentication, as well as Google authentication, and finally we're going to do the Facebook authentication as well. So, and all this we're going to use Firebase in order to implement that. So we will be using Firebase services to implement the email password authentication, as well as the Google authentication, as well as Facebook. So the first thing that we need to do, we have to connect our app to Firebase, and there's a library that makes that a bit easier. I want you to open your browser. Open your browser, and inside Google you can just type React Native Firebase. And you're gonna have the first link that you're gonna see, which is rnfirebase.io. Open that, and this will take you to the documentation of this library, which is called React Native Firebase. And there's all installation procedures, but I know sometimes it does not work, and some instructions are not clearly stated. So we're gonna go through the installation step until we have everything running. So the first thing that we have to do, we have to install this package. So I'm going to copy this, yarn add React Native app. You can copy that and paste it in your terminal and tap. This will begin installing the React Native Firebase package. And while that is installing, I want you to go again back to the browser. Okay, let's just wait for this to install so that we do one thing at a time. I'm gonna wait for this to finish installing. The installation for React Native Firebase is complete. Now go back again to the browser and scroll down. The next thing that we need to do, we need to generate the credentials for our app, so that our app is identified by Firebase as well as Google services. So there are some few things that you need to do. The first thing that we're gonna have to do is we have first to create a Firebase account. You must have a Gmail. If you have a Gmail account, then you should be able to log into Firebase. So with your Gmail account, and you can go to Google, just type Firebase Console. You take Firebase Console, take the first link that you get, and click on Go to Console at the right top hand. Click there. This will take us to Firebase. You can see I'm logged in. If you see there, I'm logged in as Express Food, and there's no project right now initialized into this, so I have to create a project, and it will request you to add the project name. So I'm going to create a project name. The name will be Express Food, and accept the terms and continue. Okay, at this stage you can just continue. There's nothing, you don't have to do anything here, just continue. And here it's gonna ask you to choose a location for analytics and all that. Okay, I'm just gonna leave it default for now and accept again the conditions and create a project. Now Firebase is busy creating my project. Awesome. Now it's saying your new project is ready. So Firebase has configured my project and everything is complete. You should also have your project ready by now. And here we have the project, Express Food project. Now once you have a project like this, you will then be able to add the iOS app or Android app or web app. And we're gonna begin with Android because that's what we've been building for so far. And you can click on Android, and here it's gonna request your app name. The app name, you have to get it from your Android manifest file. So if you go to your Android folder, sorry, let me just scroll up, I'll close some. If you go to your Android folder and you go to app folder and source folder and main, you will see there's Android manifest.xml file. Inside this you will be able to find the package name, which is under package. You can see where I'm highlighting that the package name that you have to take. You have to copy just this. It's generally start with com dot then the name of your app, which in my case is Express Food. You can copy that and then go back to Firebase. You can paste that and also request the nickname of the app. Okay, that's optional, you don't have to worry about that right now. Okay, there's one more thing that is required. It says debug sign-in certificate. This is optional, but if you have to implement things like Google authentications and other Google services that you might need, you're gonna have to supply this. Okay, you're gonna have to supply this, but you don't have to supply it here right away. We will do this later on inside our application. For now, let's continue like this, and I will show you when we're gonna need to create this SHA1 certificate. And you can continue. Now you have to download this. There is a Google services.json file. This file has to be loaded inside your app, so you need to save this inside your project. So you have to click this to download it. It's downloading here, and once you have downloaded that, you can copy that you copy the file that you have downloaded, find where it is downloaded on your computer, copy it, and then go inside your project. And inside your project you can go to the Android folder, which we opened already not long ago. and go inside your app folder as well. Open the app folder, and inside here you're going to paste the file that you have just downloaded. Once you have copied that file, you're going to paste it here. So seems that I'm not able to copy it right now. I'm just gonna see how to get it there. Okay, you can drag that file. For example, I'm dragging that file. You can take it from wherever you've saved it on the computer, drag it to that folder, and here it is. Just have to make sure I've downloaded many of these for other project, so that's why you can see 16 there. You have to delete the 16 and all the bracket and leave it just Google services.json file, otherwise you're gonna get errors. And save that. And this file has got a lot of credentials regarding your application. All the credentials regarding your application are saved into this file, and I don't have to go in details for that right now. The main thing is first to register our app inside Firebase. So now you have created that. Let's go back to React Native Firebase website. So we have completed this step, and the next thing that you have to do is you can go back to we can go next, and now we have to add all this Firebase SDK, but for our case we're just gonna add some dependencies inside our Android and Gradle settings and things like that. So we can open again your Android folder, which in my case is still open, and go to build.gradle. We're going to add some lines of code inside here. So you have to follow this carefully, because if there's a small change or small mistake, your app won't build. So you're gonna be getting a lot of errors. So you should have something like this right now in your build.gradle. Under your Android folder, your Android build.gradle, you should have these lines of code, and make sure you have these versions, or at least the latest. And underneath this, I'm going to paste some more lines of code. I've added 3 lines of code here, so make sure you type this. Sorry, these 3. Make sure you type them in your project. And I'm also going to add one more line of code. You can I'll be copying and pasting so that you can pause the video and type what I'm pasting. You can add this line of code as well. And there's still some few more things that we need to add to this Android build.gradle file. So you have the Android tools, that's fine. We also have to add the class path for Google services, and I'm going to paste that also just underneath this line of code. Under dependencies, I'm pasting something again. Make sure you type this as well, and then let's scroll down. I think that should be it for this build.gradle. I don't see anything further, so save that. Now we have to go to the app build.gradle as well. So what we've been doing so far, it was in Android build.gradle. Now you can close the Android build.gradle and open the app build.gradle. So that is inside the app folder, and then go to build.gradle. And inside here I'm also going to paste some lines of code, and you're gonna type those codes that I'm gonna be pasting here. So we're going to add a plugin for Google services. So just underneath this, apply plugin, add another apply plugin, and this is what I've added here. And let me see if there's any other thing that need to be added. I'm just going to scroll. I hope you have paused your video to tap this, and let me scroll down. Okay, I think everything looks okay. I'm going to add one more thing, because sometimes as the app grows, sometimes you're gonna get a build error because you exceed the thread capacity. So what we'll do is under this config, I'm going to add some more lines of code that you will just pause your video and tap. So I'm pasting 2 lines of code here. The first one is multi-thread dex enable, that must be true, and I'm also going to add the vector drawables and all that. So make sure these 2 lines of code are added as well. And let me see if there's any other thing that need to be. Okay, I think it seems as though everything is fine right now. It should be ready to begin coding. But before that, under dependencies, you have to add the dependencies for Firebase, for things that we're gonna be using. So you can scroll down your app build.gradle file. You scroll it down to dependencies, and under these dependencies, I'm going to add some dependencies. I'm going to paste things, so you can just pause your video and type those things that I'm gonna be pasting now, and make sure you tap them correctly. Everything that I've been pasting, make sure you tap them correctly and in the right place. Otherwise you're gonna be getting some errors, and you don't want to be in those situations. So I've added these lines of code, and it's about 4 lines of code. So make sure you type those in your app, and that should be it. That should be it for what need to be done inside this. So you can save your file, save the file, and I think the last thing that we need to do, I need to check the manifest file. You can go to the main, inside your app folder, go to source folder, go to main folder, and Android manifest.xml. Open that. Okay, and inside this file, so far there's nothing much that we have to add here. We're gonna add the API key a bit later, but for now Let's first get back to the other step that we still need to complete. So you have added all these things that they've said in here, and you can just click next and click next. Then you should have your project created. You have your Android app created inside here. So if you see under Express Food, you have an Android app, and if you click there and go to settings, you can get your app and all that. You can see the details of your app. We're gonna still have to add this key. This is very critical. We're gonna have to add that, and we're gonna do that just soon. And at the bottom here, we're gonna also add the SHA1 certificate and all the other certificate 256. So you can go back to the React Native Firebase website and can scroll. I think most of the steps here have been done. You have done all these steps. You have done all this. Awesome. So now we can go to our app. Let's go back to our app and go to the source folder. Go to the source folder and go to screens and go to auth screen folder and go to sign in screen folder. Now we need to begin implementing the authentication. As I said, we're going to implement the Google authentication. We're also going to implement the email and password authentication, and finally we will be implementing the Facebook authentication. Let's start with email and password authentication. In order for email and password authentication to work, you must first enable this service inside your Firebase project. So go back to the Firebase project and you can click on build, click on build and click on authentication and click get started. And you're gonna get different types of authentication that are supported by Firebase. You have email, password authentication, phone authentication, Google authentication, and so forth. So we will start with the email authentication, which is actually the easiest. You can just click there, and you're gonna have to enable it here. You must enable it here, and there's also a way to authenticate by sending a link to the user. So you just send a link to the user's email, and if you want to achieve that, you can also enable here. But in our case, we don't want to do that. We just want the user to provide an email as well as a password. And once that has been enabled, and yeah, I think that should be it. You can save it. And once that is saved, there are some few things that we're gonna have to do for things to work. You can go back to your project settings, and you have to add the support email. This is very important. Most of the time, if you don't have the support email, then your Firebase account won't be activated. Sometimes you might make requests and those requests won't work. So just make sure you configure this. And in my case, I just kept the expressfood01 at Gmail as my thing. So you can set it up. If you don't set it up, it won't set up automatically. You have to put it so that you see it displayed like that. Make sure you have this email displayed there like that, otherwise it won't be active. And The other thing that you have to do is you have to create the resource location. This is very critical because this will create the resource location into Google Cloud, and this will create the account in Google Cloud for this project. You're gonna have all your APIs generated there. So this location is only a once-off location. Once you have selected this, you won't be able to change it. So you would want to get a location that is as close as possible to where the app will be used, and also you have to make sure that the location that you've chosen has got all the services that you need for your application. And in my case, I'm just gonna take US Central. This is fine for me. I'm going to take this, and we can choose any that is close to you and check also the services if they are available in these regions, and click done. It can take a bit of some time because it has to create the project inside Google Cloud, but now it's complete. This is done, and yeah, so you should be able to begin implementing authentication, and your app should be able to communicate with Firebase right now. You can go back to your project. Now, before we proceed, there's a library that I have to use that makes working with forms very easy. Most of you guys know the library. The name of the library is Formic. I want to use that library. Just gonna make our lives very easy. I can see that you have not previously installed it, so we're going to add the Formic library. So you can go to your terminal, you can type yarn add Formic and enter. This will begin installing the library, the Formic library. The installation is complete. Now let's use this library to capture the user email as well as password. So go to your sign in screen, that is under source folder. Go to screen folder, auth folder, and then auth screen folder, and then go to sign in screen.js file. You can open up that screen. Let me just make this big for now. So you should have this file, and if you don't have this file, that means you have not followed from the beginning. You can watch the previous videos so you can have all that we're doing, because right now you should have your app like this. You should have this UI for authentication. That being said, we're going to import Formic, and let me just make this a bit clean. Alright, so you can import Formic. Why are you getting this error? What is gone wrong? Okay, I see I did delete that. You have to make sure it is correct. And here we can import Formic from Formic, like that. Import that, and once that is imported, we can now use it inside our application. And the usage is very simple. You have to make sure you wrap everything inside this component called Formic. Everything, by everything I mean the forms that you want to capture data from, as well as the button that will activate the capture of data. So in our case, I would really say we're going to wrap almost everything. Going to wrap everything. So you can scroll up inside here. You can open Formic component. And this is gonna be a self-closing component, and we're going to pass some values. And the first one, going to pass initial values, and the initial values that we need to pass are simply the email as well as password. So sorry for this. So I'm going to say username, which will be the email. You can put username or email, but I'm going to put username. Okay, it's gonna be empty. It's an empty string. And also we're gonna have the password, which will be an empty string as well. And we're going to create this on submit event. Sorry, this is not gonna be a self-closing component. Sorry for that. You have to close it like this, and I will show you what we will do. You can cut all the stuff that are okay. This should not be right there. It has to be below the header, because you have the header here. So this can be somewhere. Let me see. Can put it here. Put the Formic component that's below this view here, the view that is holding the registered account, registered with your account. So under this, put the Formic component. Let me make it much clean. And now you must copy or cut all this component. Cut all this component until I can say until there. Cut all this until the sign in button, and paste it inside the Formic component, so they can become children of Formic component. Paste those things here. Awesome. So I hope you've seen what I've done. I've cut everything until the sign in button. So let me show you on the emulator. So this button, these two text input must become the children of the Formic component that you've just created now. This is all that I've done. The Formic start there, and these are the components that are inside the Formic component as children. Okay, I think this is now clear to you. And once that is done, you have to listen to some event, can I say on submit. We must be able to do something. And this callback will return the values, or yes, the values of your forms, so which can be grabbed from here. You can just say values, and for now let me say console dot log values. All right, that being said, there's one thing that I need to add. Now, for Formic to acknowledge this component, we have to pass some props, and we have to pass some props, otherwise it won't know the data that is being passed and all that. So what you do is open a bracket here and open a bracket, and you must add the closing at the other side of Formic. Add it here like that, and I think what we can do, also need to add a view. Let me add the view here and add the closing view, a closing tag for this view underneath here as well. All right, and also we can now grab some props and return this text input to the Formic. So from here, from where we have just opened the bracket, I want you to have a function that will return the text input as well as the sign in button. So this is awesome. You can just do this, and this will return all these items here. For now, you can scroll down to the text input, and inside your text input, let's start with the email. We're going to pass some props. The first one that we're going to pass, we're going to say on change text. So what we'll do here, say gonna say props dot handle change, and here we're gonna say username, and we're also gonna grab the value. Here we're gonna say props dot value dot username. So this should be the same as what you've passed here. Remember, we've passed the values here, so this should be the same, otherwise you won't get the values. and we're going to do the same for the password. Here's the password. What we're going to say is on text change, on change text, going to pass the props, and then we're gonna say handle, props dot handle change, and this will be taking the password. And also the values, say values will be equal to props dot values dot password. And now on sign in, when the user press the sign in button, we can delete this for now. When the user press the sign in button, we're gonna say props dot handle submit. All this method, handle submit and handle change, as well as values, all these are props that comes from Formic. That's why we had to pass the props here. If you don't pass these props, then these props won't be available to these three components: the email, password, as well as sign in button. Because yeah, I think that it is what it is. You can save it. Now let's run our emulator to see if we will be able to grab the password in the email when the user submit or presses the sign in button. I'm going to say React Native run Android. This will be npx React Native run Android, and then you can enter. This will begin building the app. Let me just close this for now. This will begin building the app. My emulator is running, my project is running. That means the setting that you've put in are correct. And I just want to mention something. Some people might experience some errors. If you experience some errors, make sure you turn off your antivirus. Most of the time that can cause problems. I've also experienced problems before, so turn off your firewall and other protection features. In my case, I'm using Avast, and for example, if I go to protection on my Avast, you will see that my firewall I generally turn it off maybe for 10 minutes just before I build, and apart from that, sometimes also turn off things like generally firewall is the main thing that I turn off, but sometimes I might also turn off the ransomware shield, and depend on the antivirus. But yeah, just be mindful that sometimes the antivirus might block some sensitive files that are needed for the build of your project. And apart from that, also make sure that if you have running into problems, or even if you're not running into problems, just go to your Android folder, and inside the build.gradle, so your Android build.gradle file, scroll until the bottom, and on top of Google you'll see these three lines of code. Just tap the following, tap this line of code, edit there, and even if you're not running into a problem or running into a problem, just add this line of code as well. This is needed for this project as we go forward. And apart from this, yeah, that should be it. You should have everything running, and I will need to hear from your feedback. Write in the comment if you are running into a problem or if everything is working for you. Please give me that feedback. It's very important just to know that you guys are winning with this project as well. That being said, now let's test to see if you are able to capture the data from the text input. Let me put express, for example, and the password, let me put 123. And if you see from our code, in the code you will see that by pressing the sign in button, if I press the sign in button, this is supposed to be displayed on the console log. So you'll see that on submit, sorry, I can remove this. On submit, I'm printing the value. That these values that I'm printing, console.log. So, and I'm just gonna, I'm going to see my saver, and let's see what happens when I click. Okay, there seems to be nothing happening. Let me see if I've done something wrong. Okay, sorry guys, this is not supposed to be like this. This is supposed to be like this, because this is by reference. So it's supposed to be like that. You can see on your submit button, on your sign in button, make sure on press it is as you can see it right now. I've done the modification, there was a mistake there, and save the code. And let's try again to press. Awesome, now you can see we have the password, which is 123, and the username, which is express. That means you are able to capture the data from the from the text input. Now let's sign in. We are able to capture the data, but yet we are not able to sign in. So to implement the email and password sign in is very simple. It's very simple, guys. The first thing that we need to do, we have to install the Auth module. I'm going to close my terminal for now, and open your browser. If you go to the React Native Firebase.io website, and let me just go to the home page. I'm on the home page right now. You see we have the installation procedures. If you scroll down, you're gonna see at the left, if you scroll down, you're gonna see the authentication, and click on usage. And we have installed this package already. Now we're going to install this one. This is the authentication module or package. Copy that and go to your app and paste it inside your terminal and install that. And while it's installing, we're going to begin coding the authentication. So I'm going to import Auth. Import Auth. Okay, my package is successfully installed. We're going to import it now from at React Native. Can take it, this is the one, at React Native Firebase /Auth. So importing that package, and I think that is the main package that we need to import for now. So now we'll begin coding the authentication. So I'm going to create a function which will authenticate the user. I'm going to call it sign in. It's going to be an asynchronous function, so I'm going to say async and I'm gonna call it it's a sign in. I'm gonna call it sign in, and we're gonna pass data to it. This will be the data which we capture from this text input. So these are the data that we're gonna be capturing from here. Let me just make this small so we have both views. And once we have those data, we're going to destructure those data. So what we can say this const password. Can we take this, we grab this from data, and we also need to get the username, but for now let's leave it like that. And I'm going to create another instance, call it user, and gonna be again async. Await, gonna be a synchronous function. Say auth sorry guys, this is supposed to be equal. Going to use the sign in method to authenticate the user. Sign in with email and password. So I'm going to take sign in with email and password, and to this we're going to pass the data. The data that we're gonna pass here, it's gonna be the email and password. So we know that the email will be the username here, or instead of username, let us put email. I don't know why we keep username here. Change email here, tap email like that, and also there make sure you change it to email. So this will facilitate or make our coding easy. Email and password. I assume there's no more username inside here. Okay, we have to make sure this also changes to username, to email. This username has changed to email, and yeah, so everything has been changed to email. So now here we're gonna grab the password as well as email. We grab it like that, and then inside here we're gonna pass the email as well as the password. So what I'm gonna say email password, and now we have to see if the user has been signed in. To check that, I'm going to console log when the user is signed in. I'm gonna say is the user signed in. If this is true, I'm just gonna console log user signed in. Let me see. User signed in. All right, and if something goes wrong for whatever reason, so we want to be able to know what is the error and print it. So what I can say here, I'm going to say catch we'll be catching an error. Let's type error there. Okay, sorry, I'd forgotten the try method before we get to here. So all this supposed to be inside try. All this supposed to be inside try, and like that. Awesome. Let's make sure all those things are inside try, and now we're gonna be able to catch the error. So what I want to do is, if there's any error, I want to display it on my app. So I'm gonna say alert. I want to grab the error name as well as the error message. So that's it. And now here, instead of console log values, what we did, we're gonna sign in and pass the values to this function. Alright, let's test this and see if it works. I'm going to run my emulator npx. Let me just close this for now. npx react native run Android. Okay, my build is complete. Let's try to sign in and see what happens if you're gonna be able to authenticate the user. And that's gonna say express. Okay, before trying to authenticate a user, you have to be able, first of all, to create the user. So since we just want to authenticate the user, we have not yet created a user, and so far we have not implemented the create account in our app. So we can only authenticate a user until we have created our UI for creating the account. So we must go to our Firebase console and create a user inside our console. Open your browser and go to the authentication, and inside here we're gonna add the user manually because we have not yet created that inside our app. The email, I'm just going to say express at food.com, for example. And password, I'm gonna put 123456. Okay, we have added this user. Now we need to see if we can sign in with this user inside our app. First of all, let's put express at food.com. I'm first gonna put a wrong password. Let's see what it says. I'm gonna just put a. Let's see if we're gonna get a message. Yes, it's saying the password is invalid, or the user does not have the password. Awesome. That means we are communicating with Firebase and everything is working 100%. So if you're having this message, that means your app has been registered in Firebase. Now let's put the right password. 1 2 3. Let me just bring the thing here. 3456. I think that was the right password. Let me sign in. Awesome. Here telling you user signed in. That means right now you are able to authenticate the user, and now we need to be able to sign inside our app, because right now this user is authenticated but the access has not been given or granted to the app. So we're going to use the storage. We're going to use the local, not local storage. I'm going to use the store, the data store. We're going to use the context as well as reducers to be able to create a store, so that we are able to give access to the user whenever is authenticated, so that the user can be able to access our app. And that is very simple. You could have used Redux, but that is an external library that you have to install. We can make use of the React hooks, like the context as well as reducers, to make sure that we can create a data store inside our app. And then we're gonna use the React navigation authentication flow to authenticate our user and give them access to the app whenever they are authenticated.